Josef Fares, one of my favorite people in the games industry. Not only because of his personality, which many people will be familiar with, and not only because he genuinely makes awesome games and he puts his words to action. So you got It Takes Two, which not only scored really well among critics, but it also managed to win Game of the Year back in 2021. And more recently, he released Split Fiction, which is a game that garnered even more universal acclaim among critics. And I'm roughly halfway through the game, and it is genuinely one of the most creative and imaginative games I've ever played already. The game just constantly reinvents itself in a way where it feels like this is a bunch of like different games, like mini games of different genres kind of stitched into one, all of it tied together with a really kind of heartfelt storyline with characters that you eventually kind of grow to like, and with gameplay that just continues to delight throughout the entire experience, with set pieces that are just jaw-dropping, with variations in visual styles that constantly impress. I mean, this is a strong contender for Game of the Year and a genuine masterpiece, in my opinion. So not only does he have this prominent personality and makes amazing games, he also has ideals that I wholly agree with. I like the stances that he makes, and I like that he's not afraid to speak out for the idea that games should first and foremost be made to be fun. And when you do so, the revenue will kind of come because people spread word of mouth about your game, and things like monetization and this idea that live services are the future is just not the way to go. He initially spoke out just pretty much against EA when EA came out with a press release where they announced that Dragon Age The Veilguard engaged approximately 1.5 million players during the quarter, down nearly 50% from the company's expectations. And later on, EA would go on to say that the reason Dragon Age The Veilguard failed, or the reason it didn't do as well as it could have, was because it wasn't a live service. And they insinuated, the executives at EA insinuated, that had it been a live service, it would have done much better. Josef Fares himself, in an interview with Eurogamer, kind of discussed how they themselves will never be a live service game studio, and live service will never be his choice. He was emphatic in saying that he doesn't think that live service is the way to go, and hopes that more developers will focus on passion, and how Hazelight, his studio, is living proof that when you trust in your vision and go with it, you can still reach a big audience. And that's what he's gone on to prove with A Way Out, and now with Split Fiction, the critical acclaim that it's gaining and the amount of traction that it's gaining among audiences. Keep in mind that It Takes Two sold 23 million copies, and given that Josef Fares and Hazelight are under the EA Originals umbrella, that ended up being a huge boon for EA. And so EA coming out and saying that Dragon Age The Veilguard failed because it wasn't a live service, when under their own umbrella, there's proof that live service isn't a requirement for a game to garner both critical acclaim to the point where it wins Game of the Year and to sell a number of copies that any AAA publisher would be happy with. It's just a really ridiculous notion. And Josef Fares, being under EA's umbrella, still willing to call that out. I think that is something that we don't really see among developers. We just don't see many developers speak out, and understandably so. But Josef Fares is just in this unique position where his personality and just his not giving a fuck about the fact that he has strong opinions about his ideals on how game development should be pursued, all of that lends to him having this ability to be a spokesperson for, kind of course correcting the games industry into a direction that is more creatively driven by idealism rather than by this kind of greedy pursuit for monetization and for profits in a way that negatively impacts the creative output of games. And more recently, speaking to the Exerto via their YouTube channel Fall Damage, he made further comments about microtransactions and loot boxes and all of the BS that he himself has called BS, and stuff that he has been very outspoken about in terms of how he's against games implementing those features. And he kind of explained why he believes those elements are detrimental to just game design in general. Here's what he had to say, responding to a comment that he saw that Dexura presented to him.
No loot boxes, no marks, and no bullshit. Words to live by, my man. Of course. And that goes for everything we do at Tesla. I think those kind of shits affects the design of how the game should be done. Every time you take a decision, a design decision taken on you making more money in the game, I think it's a huge problem, and it's stopping our industry from a creative perspective.
I mean, there's no better way to put it, and what he's saying is not rocket science, and it's nothing new being said here, but it's good to see a prominent developer actually say those words, because it is absolutely true. When a game implements monetization systems, the game design is kind of tailored to encourage the monetization elements. It is tailored to manipulate players into desiring those monetization systems due to the frustrations that have been implemented on purpose so that they can be alleviated if players spend that extra money. And so you've got a game that feels just slower, a game whose progression system is compromised, a game whose pacing is just not quite right, a game that just isn't as rewarding unless you pay up. And that is by design. That didn't happen by accident. Whereas when you make a game like It Takes Two and Split Fiction that is entirely driven by how do we make the most batshit, insanely fun co-op experience possible, which is the vision for this game, you get a product that is uncompromised, that it's like purely distilled and concentrated fun with not a single design element getting in the way of that, not a single design element being made to make the game less fun so you can pay for it to be more fun. You can feel why games like Baldur's Gate 3 and why FromSoft games and games that have gone on to become some of the most acclaimed over the last few months and years, why those games are as fun as they are. And that's because there's nothing that was designed to kind of make the grind more insufferable, to make the game just kind of tedious, so that you can alleviate that through the microtransactions elements that once you pay money, infuse those missing pieces that make the game you feel like it's appropriately paced or like it rewards you in a way that actually makes it fun. The fact that you have to pay for the fun of a game and those experiences that are live services or are heavily driven by microtransactions, it is purposely making a game worse so that you can pay to make it better. And that's kind of what he means by how microtransactions and all that bullshit genuinely just ruins how games are designed. There is just this corruption that seeps into the game design because intent isn't to maximize fun. It's to maximize the kind of that tick in people's brain that says, fuck, this sucks. Maybe I'll spend a little money because I like this game and I enjoy how far it's taken me without forcing me to pay. But now I'm at this point where, I'm invested enough in the game, but I can't get any further without paying. And that's just pure on strong arming and manipulation, is just kind of trying to appeal to people's basest instincts in a way that is kind of malicious. And Josef Fares just isn't about that life, and I appreciate that he speaks out about that. And, people like Josef Fares, and there's also Sven Vink, who I talked about back in December of 2024 when he took the Game Awards stage, which is watched by dozens of millions of people. It is a huge audience. It's grown over the years. And so for him to go up there before presenting Game of the Year and to give that speech that he did about how important idealism is, how important it is for developers to be able to have creative autonomy, how he spoke out against microtransactions and corporate interference and all these elements just like right in front of everyone. Stuff like that, I really appreciate, because again, it's just rare to see developers use their position as some of the leaders of the games industry to kind of put themselves out like that. Now, Sven Vinken is in a position where he at least runs his own company. He is the CEO of Larian Studios. That's a self-published and self-developed company, whereas Hazelight is under EA Original. So, EA could potentially get fed up of Josef Fares's kind of outspokenness, and it could potentially lead to conflict. So there is a greater risk, I think, for Josef Fares to speak out in the way he has been. And yet he knows that the work that he does for EA is too good and too valuable and he knows what a PR shitstorm it'd be if EA were to, castigate Josef Fares or kind of let go of Hazelight because of things he said that are very reasonable things, what he's saying. And so with that kind of position that he's in, the fact that he's using his position of prominence and a position of power against EA because of the critical acclaim and the sales he's brought to the publisher, the fact that he's using that position and the potential risk of speaking out to speak out anyway and say this is how the games industry should be, and the fact that what he's saying is actually just very much true and would lead to a better industry in the future, all of that makes Josef Fares just, once again, incredibly based. It doesn't feel like he's just saying that to say it, to win, cookie points with the internet. He puts his words to action through the games that he releases. It Takes Two was a great example. Split Fiction might be an even better example of what can happen when, the focus on a creative's vision and letting developers cook and letting them do what they do best without interference, of what that can do. And the kinds of special products you get, the specialness that, allows word of mouth to spread about it, that allows them to win the kinds of acclaims that lead to further sales, and that allows for products that will stand the test of time. Yeah, I just wanted to highlight Josef Fares just continuing to be based amidst all of this. And just also wanted to congratulate him on Split Fiction. It already looked incredible from the trailers. And, seeing it come out 4 years after It Takes Two, seeing him just up the ante even more and make this co-op experience that really there's nothing quite like it. And it is as imaginative as I've seen Nintendo get. The fact that Hazelight has reached that level with the creativity behind the co-op gameplay and the coordination involved between the two players and the asymmetry that sometimes the co-op gameplay can yield with how creatively the game encourages players to work together. All of that makes for genuinely one of the most special gaming experiences of 2025 and maybe ever. Genuinely, Split Fiction, I think, is that good. Or at the very least, that's one man's take. Let me know in the comments below what your thoughts and opinions are on Josef Fares' latest comments. And if you've played Split Fiction, what do you think about the game? I think you'll have a great time, personally, if you check it out. That's my take, though. Share your thoughts in the comments below. And to be further updated on all things gaming news, reviews, and discussions, stay tuned right here on Young Yeah. I'll see you guys next time. Young out.